It's important to understand for people who aren't doing those things, but also for people who are, is that testosterone is a multiplier, and any number multiplied by 0 is 0. And that's a really important point. The most important variable for someone on TRT is their daily habits and routines. It's what they do and what they don't do chronically over time. Personally, I would take a suboptimal protocol with optimal daily habits compared to a optimal TRT protocol and terrible daily habits. Now, given that it's much easier to have an optimal TRT protocol than it is to execute everything perfectly, you should have both of those things, but you can't expect to feel incredible and to have all these amazing outcomes of TRT if you are not looking after yourself like a healthy, strong man. And the secret, one of the biggest secrets that I come to in the later lectures, which I'll share now, is that the way to avoid side effects on TRT and the way to achieve what you're hoping to achieve, and I've said this in the TRT masterclass as well, if you haven't watched that, please check it out, is that you have to live in the way that you would be producing the amount of testosterone that you're injecting if your system was working properly. So if you want to have testosterone levels double the top of the reference range, because that's the level that makes you feel good, and I would argue that's the level that most men do best with on TRT. But let's say top of the reference range to double the top of the reference range. The way to avoid side effects and the way to achieve the outcomes that you're hoping to achieve, the expectations that you have when you signed up for TRT and did your first injection or did your first application of cream, is that you have to practice the habits and the routines and the processes of a guy or the version of yourself who would be making those levels if his system was not intractably damaged, which was the reason why you had to go on TRT in the first place. The gap between how you're living and the amount of testosterone that you're injecting is the side effect territory. And that is an undisputable fact of reality. That is as factual as the sky is blue. If anyone would like to debate me on that, please send me an email to dave@advancedfundamentalhealth.com, and I would be happy to discuss the point. So, testosterone creates a catalyst for change and an opportunity to go through a metamorphosis, but it will not make the choice to do it for you. So if you start TRT and you have this honeymoon period with a surge of energy and motivation and vigor, that's fantastic. That should be ridden like a wave to build these positive habits and put them in place. But testosterone, and this is a very well-worded slide. I'm going to give myself credit here from 3 years ago. It's a catalyst. It's a catalytic event that allows you to go through this metamorphosis change, kind of like a caterpillar going into the cocoon and turning into a butterfly. It creates the environment where that can take place. And during the honeymoon, you may feel a bit more drive and predisposition to go and do this kind of stuff. But it's not going to make the choice to do that for you. It's not going to make the choice to cut the beers. It's not going to make the choice. It might make the choice to set the alarm at 6 a.m., but it's not going to make the choice to actually get up when that alarm goes off. It's not going to force you into the gym, but it's going to create an opportunity for you to choose to have this metamorphosis change. And the second lecture in this series is talking about all the habits that you should do and that you shouldn't do to achieve this. So it's a very practical, applicable guide, which you can watch in the next lecture series. But this first one is about creating the foundation for the understanding of why this stuff is important, because people don't do shit unless they understand the why. People need to make the decision to do the things they need to do because they want to do it, not because they're told to do it. I am a huge advocate of martial arts from a psychological standpoint. Doing pad work or doing work with a coach that simulates violence is extremely beneficial, not just as a form of exercise, but as a cathartic therapy. One of the most beneficial things I have ever done in my entire life was training Muay Thai at Vilnius Muay Thai with my friend Don. I am the world's worst Muay Thai athlete. I have a lot of spine and hip issues from my previous brain injury complications, but going and doing that, especially when I sucked, and persevering with it and having a male mentor teach you combat and be nurturing and safe and support you, but also put you into a highly stressful state that you can overcome and keep your cool in, is one of the most powerful things you can do for developing psychological resilience. Because if you do something that's acutely very stressful like that, and you learn to manage your stress response, you learn to keep your guard up and to throw the right combos when you're supposed to, and you don't freak out and go into a fight or flight state, this by association makes everything else in your life less stressful, because you are developing stress adaptation to something that is much harder, but is a very acute short-term thing. So this is one of the most beneficial things, and it's kind of like a preventative cure for developing the opposite, which is what Carl Jung referred to as neurosis, which in Australia we would call snowflake syndrome, which is where you become so soft because you avoid all these stresses that everything is overwhelmingly difficult. So one of the most powerful things that people can do on TRT, and I'm such a big advocate for this, is go and do 8 to 12 weeks. I would encourage you to keep doing it, but set yourself a challenge and go and do 8 to 12 weeks of one-on-one pad work with a coach to learn boxing, kickboxing, or Muay Thai. And if you go back and do that once a week, ideally twice a week, I think it's difficult to progress once a week because it's a difficult skill. But if you go and do that for 8 to 12 weeks, the person who came out the other side of that is going to be a much better, stronger, more resilient version of you without question. This is a process that I'm going to borrow from Alex Hormozi here, is that he has this saying, which is, and I'm going to butcher it, but the meaning's the same, is to create a system or a process where it would be unreasonable for you to fail. If you went and did that for 8 to 12 weeks and stuck through it, and you're the guy who did 8 to 12 to 24 hours of it, if you do it twice a week, over a 2 to 3 month period, it would be objectively extremely unlikely, and I'm saying 0%, maybe 0.1% unlikely, that you would come out of that a less resilient version of yourself. So these are processes and actionable things that you can say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this process for this period of time. And going through this process, even though it's going to be uncomfortable, I think the first session requires some degree of bravery, but it's the second session that requires the most, because you didn't know what you were getting into the first time, but you chose to go back. And choosing to go back for the second time when you suck is brave. Where do we go from here? And how can we practically apply this knowledge and maximize return on investment for time and energy spent? And this is my 5-step process that I've repeated in each of these lectures. So the first thing you need to do is reverse engineer becoming the best version of yourself. So what does this mean? So I said before, I'm going to come back to reverse engineering. If you want to build a car, it is much easier to take a car, take it apart, and work out how it worked, so that way you can understand how to build it. It's much easier to start with the finished product versus if I said build me a car and just gave you a bunch of parts and an empty workshop, that's going to be a hell of a lot harder, especially if you've never built a car before and you don't understand engineering or being a mechanic. If you've just started TRT, it is completely normal to feel overwhelmed and confused. There's a lot of new territory to cover, and there is a lot of conflicting information. I wrote TRT 101 so that you can have everything that you need to know in an instruction manual in one place that you can refer back to, that you can have all the questions answered before they even come up. TRT 101 is my best practice approach for TRT from start to finish, and it contains everything that you need to avoid all the challenges and pitfalls that I've seen come up in my clients over the last 5 years. You can check it out via the link below. So what you want to do is you want to create an image in your mind's eye. So, visualize, and this is kind of like manifestation, but without the bullshit part. But you want to visualize the best version of you. So this may be an amalgamation of a bunch of people that you look up to with, a version of yourself that's unique. But what you want to do is visualize very clearly who this guy is. So what does he look like? How does he carry himself? How does he speak? How does he speak to wait staff? What time does he get up? What time does he go to bed? What does he eat? What are his routines like? How does he dress? All of these things you want to visualize to say, who is that best version of me? And then how is he that person? What does that guy do? And what does he do that I'm not doing? Or what do I do that's detrimental that he's not doing? And what you want to do is then step by step work towards progressively adding in those positive habits or taking away those negative habits so that you can get closer to being that guy and further away from being who you are now, assuming that you're not happy with the person that you are now. The next one, step 2, is that you have to understand and accept that you have to play the ball where it lands. And this applies to everything. So if you're playing baseball and you're, playing, right outfield, and the batter, smashes one and it lands in a fresh, steaming pile of dog shit. It's a massive baseball field and it just happened to land in a massive pile of dog shit that was only shot out 2 minutes ago, and it's warm and it's steaming and it's fresh. You still have to pick up that fucking ball. You have to pick up that ball. Sucks for whoever you're going to throw it to. That'll be funny. But you still have to play the ball where it lands. That is life. Step 3 is to take radical positive action to make your TRT work for you. And this is where I want people to have a bit of guts and a bit of belief in themselves and bet on you. So there is no reason why you can't wake up tomorrow and fix all your shitty habits straight away. If you feel motivated enough to light that fire and develop those discipline practices, if you have the ability to regulate your emotions and exert willpower, and if you don't, I recommend 10 minutes a day of headspace meditation to build the ability to focus and exert your free will, you can drastically change the trajectory of who you are, how your day is going to look, how your week's going to look, how you're going to feel when you lay down at the bed every night. You can drastically change that tomorrow. You don't have to just do one small change if you don't want to. If you want to go balls to the wall, you can wake up tomorrow and do everything that you know that you should be doing and stop doing everything that you know that you shouldn't be doing. That is the best place to start. Not everyone understands nutrition. Not everyone understands exercise. Not everyone has the same level of understanding about health and fitness. But in my experience, people who are not doing well at least know a handful of things in those equations. They know that they're doing a bunch of shit that they shouldn't be doing. They know that they're not doing a bunch of shit that they should be doing. They know this. They don't know what the mechanisms of action are that are leading to the consequences they're experiencing. And what I'm trying to tell you here is that it doesn't matter. Just fix that equation. And if you fix that equation and you feel better, you can save some money on having to go to a professional to explain that to you, because you don't want to have to pay a bunch of money to sit down with someone like me and have me tell you to fix all the things that you know that you needed to fix already. That's not a good use of your money. You're better off spending that money on steak and eggs. So this one's also really important. And this is something that I speak to my clients about almost every day, is in your mind and in your analysis of you, you need to measure your progress in how far you've come, not how far away you are from your goal. So as I said before, if the version of you that you don't like is here and the version of you that you want to be is here, if you get to here, you celebrate from here to here. You don't criticize and discourage yourself that you're not already here, because momentum is powerful. One of the most powerful cures to depression and anxiety is inertia, is momentum forward. You don't have to have overcome the problem as long as you feel like you're moving towards solving the issue. Progress is an antidote for despondency. So absolutely give yourself credit where credit is due for making progress. Don't be hard on yourself for not being perfect, because you're not going to become perfect overnight. And even if you adopt all those perfect habits tomorrow, it's going to take time for those habits to compound in the effect over time. So measure how far you've come, not how far you have to go. Point which I know sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's really fucking important, is give yourself a reason to be proud of yourself. When you lay down in bed at night, if you know that you didn't do all the things you said you would do on your to-do list, if you didn't do the workout, if you hit snooze, if you ate the junk food, you might have done all that stuff behind closed doors. And you can put on a facade to other people. But you are with you 24/7. And your inner monologue does not give out participation medals. And one of the most powerful things that you can do for improving self-esteem is keeping your word to yourself, being proud of yourself, and not having wasted potential. So if you struggle to sleep at night because the voice in your head tortures you and doesn't like you and reminds you of all the shit that you fell short on, give that voice a reason to shut the fuck up. And if you wake up in the morning and you keep your word to yourself and you do the right thing, and it's so important that you keep your word to yourself, because if you don't trust you, then you're fucked, because you can't trust a lot of other people. You need to be able to trust yourself. And if you don't trust yourself, you are just going to be riddled with self-doubt, because if you can't even rely on you, the world is scary. But if you don't respect you, then other people won't respect you. And that's going to suck. Progressively overload outside the gym is what I'm saying. So adopt these small compounding habits and processes through diet and lifestyle incrementally over time to achieve the metamorphosis that you're trying to achieve. So there's two benefits to this. One is what I said before, that it's easier to do smaller things over time. But you're also giving the testosterone therapy time to work as well, because as I said before, we're looking at chronic exposure to androgens over time. So if it takes you 6 to 12 months to perfect your daily habits from incremental improvements, it's going to take 6 to 12 to 24 months to get the majority of the benefits of the TRT anyway. So you can work alongside the medication in this timeline and give both things time to compound and multiply each other. You watching this and me speaking this and us having this, I guess, pseudo interaction through the screen now is because we are descendants of the dominant bloodline. So there have been so many other bloodlines that died from war and famine and disease and starvation and freezing to death and eating poisonous plants and all these different things. We are here today because our bloodline survived every single thing that came before it, and all the way back to either creation or evolution, depending on what you believe, or a combination of both. But either way, there is a very long line of people who overcame everything that killed off all the other bloodlines. We are the dominant bloodline of the apex predator of Mother Nature. This is really fucking important because it means that you have the most potential that the human race has ever had. So you are the descendants of those who overcame every adversity since the dawn of human time, and therefore you right now are the peak of human evolution. And if you are not that, you have the potential to be in your blood, in your genetics. So as you are the modern expression of nature's apex predator, so you're the dominant bloodline of the top of the food chain, live up to your potential. Make your ancestors proud. You have to understand is that testosterone does not by default make you a masculine man. It facilitates you becoming that man, but it will not do that work for you. How does testosterone impact how you feel, and how are those mechanisms occurring?